And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Football Breakdown focused on the offense with that man they call Gorgeous Al Borges. He is back. And, after a loss, I say not only is he someone who is an expert at breaking things down, he becomes sort of a counselor of sorts, a guy who brings reason amidst all the chaos, counselor extraordinaire, right? He calls himself the key,
Key.
and does it in a way because Devin is like he's the sledgehammer in times like this. Al is like he's a soother, a soothsayer, if you will, kind of eases you into it. Denard is kind of like you in that way.
Yeah.
Al, he's
Yeah.
like you in that way.
Little less panic, a little bit more. Let's find out why. You know what I mean? I think that makes more sense. And I was that way as a coach too. I mean, I had my share of commiserating too, but I always want to know why. Particularly now, because I want to see Michigan win, but I don't have the stake in it that I had at one time. So I'd rather just dissect in the most finite fashion that I can and come up with some answers to why, and then figure out, make sure that you understand the sky is not falling. It was overreaction Monday yesterday. Overreaction Monday was in full swing yesterday. Oh my goodness gracious, chicken little.
Look at
Uh,
John Walls. He already said, "Let's
oh
go, Al. Help me off the ledge." We had a bunch of ledge jumpers,
no, no reason,
yesterday.
no reason to jump off the ledge. It's the first tough game on the road in a really difficult environment against what I think is a pretty good team now. I mean, you always want to think that when you lose, but I think they're a pretty good team. They're going to be in the playoff hunt. And, they got a quarterback, they got a defense, they got a great fan base. Yeah, you come in there with a young quarterback. There's and growing pains are inevitable. They're inevitable. Okay, so you'd hope that the baptism by fire wasn't so grueling, but it is what it is, Sam.
hmm Yeah, man. It's one of those things where it's always interesting to see why, and to me, it's interesting to see where opinions diverge. Because I think you guys know, and man, Sharon is my dude. I love Sharon. I love my dude. I love my dude. And yet I see, his opinion on Bryce. And I'm like, man, bro, I think the training wheels are on a little too much with him. I see where he's coming from. I see where he's coming from. Where he's like, I gotta protect him. I gotta protect him. And I'm like, bro, I think you gotta take those training wheels off. I think you gotta take
There's
the
a
training
point.
wheels
There's
off.
a point. There's a point. And that's the first thing I think that you always hear the buzz, and some of it's legitimate. I mean, you can't poo poo it all because it's fair. But there's always, from a coach's perspective, there's always a reason, And I think Chip's taking hits because of the conservative nature of the play calling. And I've been in the same situation. There's a reason, okay? There's a reason. You got a young quarterback who you don't want to put harm's way in a very difficult environment. He's a good player, but you don't want to put him where he's in bad situations and maybe depend a little bit more on a running game in an environment like that. Well, problem is it didn't work out too good, and it would end up putting pressure on him anyway. So after the fact, you can see why they did what they did if you analyze it and understand something. This is something the fans don't know, like I know. Chip Lindsey is not a conservative play caller.
Mhm.
Okay, I sat next to him in a booth for a whole year, and then I've watched his videos. But this was a different dynamic with a different schematic that had Michigan, who's been a great running team over the years, and I think he wants to live up to that rep. So the idea, I believe, and I haven't talked to Chip. I sent him a couple of texts. I haven't talked to him about. I will eventually after the fact, but I think it was try and protect the kid so he doesn't have to be Superman in a game that's going to be very difficult to win. And so it didn't work out. And but the growing from this type of football game, if this team, Sam, plays this team in game 8 or 9, I promise it's going to be different. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win or lose, but you're going to see the growth of the quarterback take effect in 6 or 7 games of experience where you're jumping into the fire of the second game and that again in that type of environment. And there's, like I said, those growing pains are going to be inevitable.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. I feel like as I get your broad brush and you give me your take on it as a play caller, because it's easy for me to say I've never called plays, and I don't know football to the extent that you do and coaches do. So again, very easy for me to armchair it.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, there are things from a novice perspective that I can still see, that the fans can still see, and
Mm-hmm.
we can see that this offensive line is not as good as the 21 line.
Nope.
This offensive line is not as good as the 22 line when they won the Joe Moore Award. Al, this line is not even as good as the 23 line. And I don't think it will get as good as any of those lines. Now, I think it will get better. I
Mm-hmm.
think it will ascend to being a really solid line. But until then,
What do you do?
what do you do?
Yeah,
What
that's
do you do, Coach
yeah.
Borges?
Well,
What?
you count on development and improvement week to week in every position. Okay, that's number one. You count it because if you don't get that, you're right. They're not going to be able to do anything. They're just going to get the kid killed, and they're not going to be able to run the ball. This line's not that bad. Okay, it may not be the level of those other lines, but it's not that bad. They're well coached, but they ran into a team that had a lot of movements. They didn't handle the movement great and was extremely physical inside. And at times were out physical, which again, that happens to a lot of teams. It wasn't like they pushed them all over the place every play, but there were plays that showed up. So now you're blocking. And here's the other thing, Sam. And I talked to you about this, I think yesterday, is the inexperienced tight ends, which understand something. Michigan depends and has had great success, and it's a part of the offense I just love. I love this because it so much caters to how we used to play. They depends on tight end play and multiple tight end play or H-back types, right? Well, the only guy in there that really played much was Bredesen, okay? The rest of the guys I don't think had a heck of a lot of experience with Klein out and such. Now, you're running your multiple tight end packages or your extra lineman packages some, but you're doing it in a situation where you got a multiple movement defense that's going to require some serious communication inside and on the edges where the tight end is. And I think there were times that didn't get communicated, and some people creased the edge and stopped some plays before they got started. So it went beyond just the offensive line. I really like their tight ends, and I love their coach. I think he'll get them squared away. They'll get better as they play. But this, again, just like Bryce, it's not just exclusive to the quarterback. You had some inexperienced guys against a really good defense that was testing your ability to communicate and be physical. And I think there were times that just didn't happen, and that's why they struggled. That's why their running game, although they had one nice run, was erratic, and why their pass protection was erratic. But I think game 8, this would be a different story.
Mm-hmm. And so their idea, in terms of protecting him, protecting the defense, was they were going to run this football.
Oh yeah,
Which,
what
which
they do all the time anyway. That's not news. It just wasn't as effective, so it ended up making it harder for the quarterback.
it
That's not news. That's not news.
certainly.
People at Penn State, no one screamed about that, did they, Sam? Because that's really what they did, right? They learned early they couldn't protect the quarterback, so bam, they shifted. They had the quarterback more involved in the run game, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more. But that's really what they did there. But it worked. Defense played good. Everybody was happy. It was too conservative, but they did what they had to. Well, they tried to do a similar thing, not quite as extreme as Penn State.
Yeah. And so
It
you
was as good.
you just said something very curious to me. Curious in that wasn't as much of a reference point in this game as I expected it to be, the Penn State game.
You talking about the quarterback runs?
Yeah, well, the yes, the approach in this game,
Mm-hmm.
meaning this was very much Oklahoma a defensive line like that Penn State defensive line, one of the best defensive lines in the country, and they couldn't block it. And so Michigan, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't block, they couldn't pass protect. They were very ineffective running the football. And so the way they started becoming effective was they said, okay, we're going to inject JJ into the run equation. They did some other things. That wasn't the only thing they did. It wasn't like JJ was a panacea. They introduced the
No, it
heavy
was just
package.
enough. It was just
Yeah,
enough, right? Just
yeah,
enough. Yeah. They ran a
yeah,
third down crack sweep. I think they got a first down. They had a counter play, the read play that got a nice play. It was just a handful of plays that helped balance the running game a little bit and featured some +1 running that's difficult to deal with loaded boxes. And that's another thing we didn't mention is, oh my goodness, those safeties. I mean, they were close enough to grab the handoff a couple times. They were making tackles, unblocked, uh, unfettered, unthreatened, and
yeah.
that makes it tough too.
So two things come to mind in this from that game that I need you to address, Al. It was it turned the game. All right. It changed their effectiveness without question and allowed them to win. Like Penn State could not stop them. After that, they come out on top. Now, JJ does get hurt in that contest.
And
Okay.
the residual was that. See, there's checks and there's balances. Again, I say this every week. You're tired of hearing it. All these guys are yelling, "Run the quarterback, run the quarterback," and then he gets hurt.
JJ does
Why'd
get
you
hurt.
run the quarterback? So it's a delicate balance, man. You got to have enough, but not too much. Use it, but don't abuse it. But in this game, I think after the fact, they probably wish they'd used a little bit more. But
Well,
I don't know.
Sharon has doubled down on his commentary that, hey, if you're gonna run the quarterback, you better have two, right? Basically saying, hey, I'm very reluctant to run Bryce. Basically saying, I don't think I have to. I don't want to risk my quarterback.
And
But
maybe going into the game, they didn't feel they had to, Sam. I don't know.
I just don't know that they have a choice right
Yeah.
now, given the state of the offensive line. And my point to you is, or maybe my question to you is, and I'm putting you in the position of being the coach, being an offensive play caller, and saying, hey man, can't you at some point, don't you have to take the risk? Don't you just have to risk it for the biscuit, as they say, and say, hey man, it's football. He's a little bigger than JJ. Too. I
Yeah.
mean, don't you have to say 3 or 4 times in the game, I'm just gonna give it a shot to establish the threat and just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna roll the dice because I really don't have other ways right now until the offensive line gets a little bit better to really balance the equation.
Yeah, that's something that you can certainly say would be an effective answer. Okay, potentially an effective answer. But you got to know how far to take that if you're going to do it. That's all I'm saying is this kid's. You say he's bigger than JJ. Hell, he's a lot bigger than Denard. And we used to run Denard, you know, but Denard got beat up. He'd be the first one to tell you he got beat up. So yeah, I think it's an answer. I think it's a really good answer if you feel your conventional running game isn't effective enough. It's a great answer if you don't feel that your conventional running game was effective enough. Now, I think going into this game, they weren't at that point. I'm sure sitting and say we can still run our duels. We're not going to let these guys take us out of our game, and we got to run our quarterback. I can hear that conversation now, and I've had that conversation. But now that you've seen what can happen against a formidable team, okay, and I'm talking about now when they go to Nebraska in a couple of weeks, and I don't want to overlook Central Michigan, but I don't know how much you're really going to learn about what we're talking about against Central Michigan. To learn more about what we're talking about in the Nebraska game and the Michigan State game and those types of games. So if at that point you feel like our conventional running game without +1 runs, without a litany of zone reads or whatever it is just not, not getting it done, then we got to have an answer. And one answer is to run the quarterback. There is no question about it. I'm just not sure in this game that was foremost in their mind. Or whatever. I've talked to them or anything, but that's probably what I would guess based on how the game was called.
Yeah, and so let's start off though talking about what you saw from the quarterback perspective.
Mm-hmm.
From early in the game and how Oklahoma was playing him and what he was seeing, to how they adjusted, how he reacted and what he was seeing. I mean, from start to finish, what you saw from Bryce Underwood.
Well, what happened here was one thing that just wasn't good in the game that hurt is the inability to convert third down, because there were several third downs. The first, third, and four, we threw a bubble, and they just played the hell out of the bubbles. I mean, they were on it, man. We'd thrown a few a week ago, and they knew they were coming. And first, third, and four, we had to punt. The second one, now he did a third down. He stepped up in the pocket and ran a dagger route. And third and 9, he hit it for a completion, but then we tried a quick screen on 3rd and 4. It didn't work. We tried a little flat route on 3rd and 5. It didn't work. Ran an open stretch play, which was probably because they weren't hitting the passes. Tried to take a shot at a run. Didn't work. So, one thing kind of led to another, and it became increasingly apparent that it was going to be difficult because the pressure was getting great. And the pressure, I don't care who the quarterback is, whether a freshman quarterback or a guy that's been playing there 6 years. If there's that much pressure, it's going to affect his play. Now, it affects certain guys play more than others, but freshman kids, it's more likely to affect them more than anybody. You saw what happened to Arch Manning a couple weeks ago. Is he just, it's not a 7-on-7 drill. And you realize real quick that it's not, and now those balls got to come out faster, or you're forced to buy time. And in this game, Bryce was forced to make a lot of off-platform throws, which he's capable of making, but it's not what you want to do every snap. You want to make those occasionally, okay? But if that's your MO, you're going to throw a lot of incompletions, okay? So that was tough for him. What I did is he got fooled, I believe, early. The 6th play of the game, they showed a what looked like man coverage. You remember this play?
Yeah, I do.
Like man coverage, but this wasn't a deal. I'm using this example, but it wasn't like they tricked him all day with coverage concepts, okay? Which was the perception that happened to Arch Manning, that this happened this time, and it may happen another time, but it wasn't something that was habitual. They came up and showed a man look. He thought the inside slot fade was going to be open. They bailed into a 3 deep. He didn't confirm it. He threw the slot fade. The corner got over the top of it and almost chased it down and intercepted it. But that was one. I mean, that's a freshman quarterback thing. That can be coached and will be coached. That'll be fixed. He had one time where he broke the pocket early with good pass protection on another dagger route. Now they're giving him dagger routes because A, he can throw them, right? And B, they accommodate a lot of pass coverages. But he had good protection on one. He left the pocket, did a hell of a job of dropping the ball off and then getting a nice gain at first down. But oh my goodness, Sam, the post was a touchdown. If he just collects his feet, reset, and aired it out, he's got a touchdown. So, you took a ham sandwich, you could have had a steak.
Denard talked about this, and he said, he said he didn't. If you looked at his wing, he said he referenced you. He said, look at the wings on his helmet, Sam. Yeah. And he said he looks left, and he said, now look at the wings. He said he doesn't even look at the post. No. He said it goes right from the left to now he's bailing. It doesn't stop to even take a glance at the post.
And as we've said many times, Sam, the post is the alert, right? The post is the alert. So it's got to be the first peak on a dagger route. If they're giving up the post area, that ball's got to go up. And the guy lost leverage. He beat him inside. I mean, he's a good ball. It's a touchdown play. So that was a missed opportunity. And what happened a little bit here too, and this tends to happen to quarterbacks, and particularly young quarterbacks, is you start shortening your drops, speeding them up, thinking you got to get rid of the ball faster, and the timing of your passing games get shot in the butt. You know what I mean? You got to take the full drop regardless of what the pass protection, so you can still time out the routes and see the throws. Okay.
Can you
just
explain?
Know the ball's got to come out of your hands at a certain, maybe quicker, but it can't affect your drop.
Can you explain to the folks that we didn't do this do the film study, but we broke this down on the film study. Can you explain the alert on the dagger?
Yeah, well, the dagger route is a break in behind a post. Okay, you got what you would you like if you're going to personnel it. Put your fastest dude at the point inside the inside receiver, regardless of formation, and have him try and blow the top off the coverage. Get the deepest defender deep. Okay, and then what you do is he runs a post, the dagger or the break in route that we call the dig comes right in behind him, right in about that 16 to 18-yard area. Some guys run it deeper than that. And you're trying to work in behind the second level of the defense. And then generally someone is either slipping into the flat or running a little jerk route to pull the flat defender. The quarterback takes the drop, collects his feet, and he peeks to the post. That's the dagger, okay? Peek to the post, mean alert, make them respect that route so we can throw the one we really want to hit. But every so often, and you saw JJ do this, okay? Yeah. They give you the alert. And that's what happened. And the protection allowed it. Sometimes the protection doesn't allow. The protection allowed it. They give you the alert. Hey, let it rip. Make them pay, okay? If for some reason, I used to tell the quarterback, make it be big, though. If it's not big, don't throw the alert. The alert means that you look, but it's got to be big to throw it. It's because the dagger's so good, and Bryce is so good at throwing daggers, So it's alert 1, 2, alert 1, 2. So it's a 3 read, but I use alert instead of 1 because 1 would be a hard peak. You know what I mean? Alerts, just check it quick, get off. Okay. So, but it's a great route, great off play action. He hit one last week, and he seems to understand it really well. But again, protection, Sam, footwork and protection. It gets you. That's what gets you to the reads. More than your eyes do, because if you don't have good footwork, your eyes will never get to the read.
Hey, I remember us breaking down in the title year, like JJ hit every single route. He hit every
I remember I said, I'm going to use this as a training reel, because when you train a quarterback, okay, this is what you do. This is when you throw the post. And there's a great example of it, Bam Show post. This is when the dagger's open. This is the check down. And then now the quarterback sees it. You talk about it, but you see somebody else doing it, and it's so much better to teach it that way.
Yeah, and JJ would find he would hit that alert. Like if it was open, JJ threw it. If the alert was there, he found that.
He found it. But not right away, Sam. When he first started doing it, he was not. He wasn't getting it right away. But after a while, he knew that route. He could run that in his sleep. And I think Bryce is going to have run enough where he'll be the same way, with all the same ability to get the receivers the ball. Another one that came up was they ran one, I can't remember, but I don't know if it was inside the 20, but it was close to it, where they ran a little stutter post, okay? Little stutter post, and nobody covered the guy. You remember the play?
Mm-hmm.
It was on the all 22. It was a
I get the play number. Hold on. I got it here.
It was play 45 on all 22. Play 45. The guy kind of bit the stutter, and he broke the post, but I think Bryce threw the fade ball. And he had some pressure now. But this is where he makes your team great. I think he had the ability to buy a little time, even though there was pressure, and still get that ball off. But there was some miscommunication there. And that's another thing. There was some miscommunication in the game on a few plays. There was an RPO where the receiver was blocking and the ball went out there. And I don't know whose mistake it was without coaching them. But this one was a touchdown play, undoubtedly a touchdown play. And he threw the fade ball, and the receiver broke free to the post. And again, another missed opportunity. I remember you could say Michigan played bad, and they'll be the first one to tell you they could have played better. This was a one-score game now for a long time. So those plays really are important. They're big. They can turn the game around, turn the momentum around, and before you know it, a team that wasn't playing very well is playing better because you can generate some of those explosives. But that's another one I saw. There's another one. It was some protection issue, but again, a guy like him, unless the guy blows through there free, and he doesn't have a chance, he has ways to make plays happen. I've seen it. they ran a trap pass and the tight end was wide open. That was I believe that was play 20 on the all 22, where nobody covered the tight end. He had to throw the ball to the shallowing tight end. He didn't throw the ball to the over, but nobody covered the over. But again, seeing the read, making the read, and maybe throwing the ball and getting hit. You know what I mean? Because great quarterbacks, they're going to get hit on some throws where you can say, "Oh, the protection was bad." Yeah, well, I'll get rid of it and take the shot. You know what I mean? Assuming he's just not getting blown away and never gets a chance. You know.
Yeah. What do you call it? You said there's a phrase that you use that you
Occupational hazard.
occupational hazard.
The occupational hazard. I'll never forget when I picked that up. That just came right out of my mouth one time when I was coaching at Oregon. I was with Tony Graziani, who I love Tony. He was funny. I love coaching Tony. But Tony made a throw. It was kind of like the same throw Bryce made when he tried to throw a slant, and he kind of threw it like this, you know what I mean? And the ball sailed over the guy. So I wasn't even close. And I told Tony, I go, stand in there and throw it. Because, Coach, I'm going to get killed. I looked at him and said, occupational hazard. Either you want to play this position, or I can let the other quarterback play the position, see if he's willing to take it. And it got his attention. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't like it. I hate seeing those guys get hit. But sometimes, Sam, you don't see your greatest plays. And that's just part of the position. So that, there was some of that. The post wheel, Sam.
Yeah.
We had another post wheel. But again, there was what happened is, and I'm not sure what the tight end was doing. He started to block the backside, okay, and then released, but the guy was free to rush. But Bryce could have bought a beat, maybe with a little back out throw, and hit the tight end because he was uncovered at the time. So again, I don't know. I'd have to talk to Chip to know exactly all the dynamics. So I'm not pretending I got the answer, but it was there.
Yeah, he hit a post wheel for a touchdown.
For a touchdown a week ago. I know but his protection was much better. But this wasn't impossible pass protection. This you could have got this one off, but I don't know. By that time, a lot of crap had been happening during the game, and like I said, that affects the quarterback. I don't care. I don't care what it is. So I had another post cut on a Dagger on play 53, where the post was there again. I believe it was what was it? Touchdown. It was, the post broke and he ended up throwing the ball. I don't know why he did, but he threw the ball to the corner. The tight end was running the corner and the Dagger was happening in the wide field. And I have to talk to him, to know why it happened. But I just know watching, there was a guy to the post open again. For whatever reason, there's just so many things you sit there and can criticize. Oh, I should have done it. But you don't know what he's thinking, what he's been taught, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things. You don't see it from his perspective all the time, too. It's easy to sit in the stands and not know what that protection looks like up front when you're the quarterback. So, those wheels are turning, man. And every play for a guy like him is a learning experience. Some turn out great learning experiences with great results. Some turn out great learning experiences with bad results. And there's probably more of that in this game than others. But you watch as he plays more, these things will come more natural to him.
So, I mean, by the post wheel point in the game or later in the game, listen, they were heating them up. I get it. Especially a young quarterback at that point, they're teeing off, and he's in obvious pass situations, a lot of third and obvious pass situations. Listen, he's gonna be antsy, right? Early in the game, that's where it's like, as a play caller, I wonder what you're thinking when it's clear that he's not quite seeing it. The one where he, they're in cover 3, he thinks it's man. The one where he doesn't hit the alert. He makes a good play, but he doesn't see the alert. How do you, as a play caller, address that from the standpoint of it's moving fast for him, right? Where he's
faster and faster as the game goes on.
Right.
That's right.
It's moving fast for him. How do you slow things down to the point where you can get it so he can process things, so you can keep the chains moving. This gets back to my original point. I hate to sound like a broken record or keep beating the same drum. This is why I'm saying they're not running the football consistently enough
Yeah.
to keep the chains moving.
Yeah.
This is why I'm saying, hey, how do we establish some consistency, help establish some consistency in this run game? Because they are winning the line of scrimmage. So how do we help this line out to the point where you can keep these chains moving like they are? It's not like he was not like Mateer was totally on point. He threw an errant ball, but he was obviously a little more on target, but he was also running the football, helping to keep the chains moving. This is why I keep saying, man, I think they got to loosen the grip a little bit on the court in one way or the other. And maybe I'm off saying run him, but if you're not going to do that, then maybe they got to loosen the strings on Chip a little bit and let Chip do some of the things he wants to, or some of the things that he was doing elsewhere, and say, hey, okay, we're gonna do a little more spread stuff then. Maybe you're gonna do that, but do some more aggressive Bryce stuff in one way or the other.
Yeah, and using a multitude of schematics to help him, and he did some of that. Now he ran 3 nakeds and ran 1 sprint pass during the game, which the sprint pass, the nakeds, that's the first thing I think of when there's problems in the pocket. Okay, but there's only so much of that you can do if it's pure third down. They dropped back only 11 times in the game, Sam. In a game where you're trying to catch up, you would think there would be more, right? And most of those were in the second half. So, but yeah, changing the throwing spot, running the quarterback a little bit more, those types of things. Sometimes they're the answers, sometimes they're not.
So Derek Hampton is just convinced. I'm curious, Derek. I mean, OC Derek Hampton says you just can't. There's no way you could run him. Is that true? There's no way you could run him.
Al? Oh no, you run him. Hell, what did Oklahoma do? They ran the quarterback. They didn't run him a ton, but they ran him. He had some design quarterback runs and took off on some scrambles that really hurt Michigan. So yeah, you can run them. It's just how much. You got to be careful. That's all. I watch some of the pro teams even run a quarterback some, and so, and I say this all the time. I said it last week. I always, when I talk to young coordinators and they're designing their offense, the first question you have to ask yourself is how much do you want to run the quarterback? Because that will determine your schemes. That will determine your approach. Is he a runner passer? Is he a passer runner? Okay. And so that means that's how you're going to go about your business.
So give me your 2 cents. So because I want to get to the questions from the people and we'll get to your grades before we do that. Just give me how you would do it, Al. I'm not asking you what you think they're going to do. I'm just asking you, given what you've seen that they have available personnel and that personnel's limitations, how would you address it?
Well, pretty much what I've said and what I've done, even when I didn't have running quarterbacks. But I think my philosophy, right, wrong, or indifferent, and God knows I don't have all the answers, but every third pass play, the pocket's going to move somehow, or the ball's coming out fast with a quick throw. And they did some of that. So let's just be clear on that. It wasn't like this is not novelty. If the quarterback is, in fact, a plus runner, and I don't mean a plus runner, but a plus runner, he's a guy that can run the football, okay? In the bigger games, I would lean towards running him anywhere from 5 to 8 times and maybe more if you had to, okay? That was always, we would do that with, we're going to run Denard, 18 to 20 times because he was the running game, okay? But a guy like Devin, who was a plus runner, but not Denard's type of runner, in certain games, we would run him more than we would run him. Again, play action with here and there, not too much. If they're up your butt, you're trying to get passes off, you're going to have to be careful, but still play action where you can take the ball down the field every so often so you can still get a bite so the defense feels vertically threatened. Okay. That's a big deal. Something that Chip majors in, and they threw a few of them in this game, is just screens, some form of, Chip's got a million of them. I've seen them before. and you'll see them before the season's over with. But screens can be extremely helpful, even sometimes if they're defended because they know you got them. And people sometimes the defensive line will hesitate to rush as hard as they would if you didn't have them. Okay, that's all these things combined: pocket movement, quarterback runs, screen game. This isn't novelty. This is how most guys approach it. And then mix and match your team. And then occasionally misdirect with a big play. Now they tried to do that once, but it was just ill time. They had a shark coming into the reverse. I mean, sometimes you just don't call it at the right time. God knows I called a few of those. But you did, you know how good the reverse has really been for Michigan, and they got to go back to it. But some of that stuff, the misdirect, Sam, is anytime a defense is aggressively pursuing the ball and attacking the quarterback, they have to feel there's a point they have to redirect. Because if they're always running a straight shot to the launch point or wherever the ball's being exchanged, they're unfettered. They can feel aggressive. So those types of things, I think, are all ways to go about helping yourself. But if you ain't, I'm going to say this, all that stuff sounds great and I'm a genius and all that, and I'm not. But if you ain't blocking them, it don't matter. Just understand that. You still got to block them. You still got to block them. You still got to give your runners a chance to get started, your quarterbacks a chance to get the ball off. All that stuff still, it comes down to some very fundamental components.
Yeah, and you need it certainly helps if you have your guys. I mean, losing Gio Hurts and losing Marlon Klein, which you touched on a little bit, his absence was huge in this game.
Well,
Marlon
it's yeah, you're right. It's a bigger deal, and no one's even said it, but it's a bigger deal than you think when you major in tight end play as much as Michigan does, and you're playing with guys that haven't played a lot that are going to be good players now because they bust their butt. Now but that was a tough one to deal with. That was truly baptism by fire, not only for the quarterback but for the tight ends that haven't been playing as much.
Yeah. So, folks, here, hey, if you have questions for Al, put them in the chat in the chat now. If you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now. I have been logging those who have put questions in already. But if you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now, and he will get into his grades. So, Al, give us your grades for the offense.
Well, the O line was D plus, C minus. That I'm being kind in some ways, but they weren't completely awful. Now, I mean, there were some plays that were very encouraging. They broke that counter F to start the second half. They backdoored it. They got over pursuit, and Hayes broke back, and they got there. There were some runs in there where they were gaining 4 and 5 yards. It wasn't a complete stone wall, but the consistency of play just wasn't, I'm sure, where they want it. And you can't grade them any better than that based on the result. The tight end's about the same thing. And I think a lot of that was experience in the tough environment. But and Bryce was a C minus, maybe a D plus at times. But again, some stuff in there where you're saying, this guy's got a chance. This guy's got a chance. Just get his feet on the ground, get him confident, get him doing things he can do, and those are gonna be A's very soon. The running backs I mean, they had the one run, they ran hard. I'd give them probably a B. They probably graded better than everybody else, but certainly not stellar by any means. And the wide receivers did not do a very good job of blocking the perimeter. I gave them a C minus. Although the one number one, help me with his name.
Donovan McCulley.
Yeah, boy, did I like that catch. Now, I'm going to say the post route, okay, is my complaint a year ago is I'm waiting for a receiver to bring me out of my seat. You know what I mean? Like some of the guys have in the past, and he brought me out of my seat. That's the first play in a couple of years where he went and took the ball at its highest point, out-muscled him, and created a big play on a great throw, I might add. He gave him a chance to make that play. So that was encouraging as hell. So, it was, I'm not, they tell you, I'm sure, this was not their best effort, nor is it going to be their best effort. But it's not time to jump off the ledge just yet.
No doubt. A lot of questions are rolling in for Al Borges. If you have questions for Al, put them in the chat. We will start knocking them down as Gorgeous Borges will hopefully, again, keep you from jumping off the ledge. I think he has addressed a lot of the questions so far. And let's start getting into them now. Questions and comments. By the way, Steve Horn, he mentioned the shovel pass last week. He said, Sam and Al, broke out the shovel pass. We were talking about it last week, and I thought it had a chance if he would catch it.
I think he did. Yeah, I saw when I studied Chip at North Carolina, they ran the hell out of that play. Now and it's nothing more than a draw. Okay, that's really what it is. It's a back kind of sets for a beat like he's going to protect. They let the line come up the field, do their twists or whatever they're doing, and he just slips behind him, and you just pop in the ball. And you'll see that again, I'm sure, and that you'll see it hit a big one eventually. So, and there's another one. There's another one right there, Sam. Just slow that pass rush down. But it was one of those games where those plays you love so much and work so well just didn't work. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, on to the next one. John Wall says, I don't really love designed runs. I think he meant designed quarterback runs, but I love boots and rollouts for Bryce to run and get some yards or protect yourself and throw. So he doesn't like the +1 runs. Al, I like the extra blocker, man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like
Again, they use it, don't abuse it. But what he's saying, I'm with him, man. I love the boots and the rolls and the move. And you can't, those are all again equipment for your offense. Living with sprint outs, unless you're like a run and shoot team or something, it's hard to do. Okay, but to do it like once every third or fourth pass, good stuff. Good stuff. Gets the quarterback closer to the target. Doesn't force the line to protect forever. It's you can see the throw. And if you got a good running quarterback, you may even have a run pass option in there somewhere too. So yeah, I like that stuff too. But I don't see any problem with +1 runs as long as they don't go off the deep end.
Rico, he says Sharon is probably scared to death from when he saw JJ get hurt, got hurt versus Penn State, and he saw firsthand how that literally could have prevented a championship. I understand the reluctance; it's a dilemma.
I do too.
Indeed.
Yeah, I do too. Well, that's good. Very good point by Rico. You can see why I got Denard hurt my second year. He was killing. He's playing really good against Nebraska, and he got injured, and that deflates the team. It's tough to lose your guy, but that's your bread and butter. You got to run him, and so you can't really have buyer's remorse if that's how you live your life. But they don't have to do like Denard. They can be very, very moderate with him.
See, here's the dilemma. I guess I see the point, but if you don't do it, you lose anyway.
Yeah, you punt. Yeah.
You lose anyway.
Yeah. And the other thing we haven't really mentioned much, Sam, but I think we should, is maybe, and just maybe, and this is again after the fact, okay, this is not, is getting into a couple more spread looks and maybe zone reading a little more.
Mm-hmm. That's what Denard said.
Yeah, giving him he did say that, didn't he? Yeah, I think and they're never going to be a spread team, nor do they want to be, because it's not their identity. But they do have that. They have that ability, and they've done it in the past. They did it with JJ. They've done it with all their quarterbacks one time or another. And you got a big strapping kid back there to pull that ball, or at least threaten the defense. So a little more of that. It doesn't make you as tight end dependent. You know what I mean? So it's a thought.
All right. Get back to the questions for Al Borges as they keep rolling in for Gorgeous. All right. On to the next one, as they are a bunch of them. All right. Let's get to the next one. Clifton Cree says Samaj shouldn't have gone back into the game after that big hit. So this is interesting. So that is a decision that's out of the hands of the head coach.
Yeah. Well, it isn't, but it is, because if they say he's fine, I mean, your job is to be the head coach. You're not the doctor. Okay. He can cut him loose and you can say, no, I'm not going to play him. But more often than not, the kid's begging you to go back in a game. The doctor says he's fine to go, and 99% of the time, the guy lets him go. Okay.
And so this was in the aftermath of the whole Shane Morris deal, right?
Yeah. And the narrative on that was really ugly. I didn't that one. I wasn't there at the time, but
Yeah,
So,
but they put a doctor on the field to make that decision, to decide whether he was
yeah,
clear, and the doctor makes the decision that he's healthy enough to go back on, and once the doctor says he's clear, then it's just a matter of, it's not a medical decision anymore.
right,
The medical decision is made by the doctor. Now it's just,
right,
after that is do you want him to go back in, because can he play or not? Not, is he medically fit?
right.
Medical fitness is determined by the doctor,
Yeah,
not
because I've done that. I've not allowed a kid to go back in the game, even though he was cut loose. There's something about him I just didn't like. I've done it. I've had experience. So as much as the doctor can release him, you cannot release him if you don't. It's your decision who plays. Once they claim he's fit, it's
so.
your decision.
So you're saying after the doctor said, okay, he's clear, you said, I don't care what the doctor said.
I don't like what he looked like. I didn't like what he looked like. I didn't like it just in his eyes. I just didn't feel comfortable. Okay, so no, but I'm not a doctor. But I am the coach, and I can offensively determine who goes into the game. So more often than not, if they say yes, and then I let them go back in. More often than not. But there was a time or two that when I said I just didn't feel good about it.
All right, on to the next one. Brian Block says, Al, why is Bryce play faking on air on play action?
That's aborted running backs. Okay, let's understand this. All right. Everybody goes, "You're going the wrong way." No, he didn't go the wrong way. Okay. Although it looks like it, I can see why a person would ask that. Okay. When you, and part of your play pass game, okay, and Michigan has, I think they ran 3 of these in the game where they were pocket passes off play action, which usually those type of plays, the ball's going down the field somehow. Okay. So the quarterback has got a design fake. It could be a reverse turn, long fake where you're trying to pull the safeties up. It could be a claw fake where you're reaching hard and pulling the ball back. It just depends on what you're trying to sell to the defense. Okay. The back's responsible for faking the hell out of it and making and selling it so that he gets hard bites. But there is a caveat to that. He has to always have his eyes on, particularly on perimeter blitzers. Okay. Where he can now, and a lot of times, and we've talked about this, Sam, is the contour of the defense will tip you as to what the intentions of the defense is. Maybe the corner's starting to creep a little bit, the safety's moving off the hash. The running back sees that. The coach usually will coach him to be aware of that, and he will come off that fake and do what we call an abort. You abort and go pick the blitz up, the hell with the fake, because you don't want the quarterback killed. Well, I think that happened twice in the game. I know it happened once to a corner blitz. And generally, that's when the guy aborts, is when it's a corner blitz. But there are other blitzes where you're shorthanded to the backside of the quarterback's, So the running back has to be keenly aware of making sure he's taken care of. So if push comes to shove, he will abort that fake, and the quarterback will end up faking to nobody. It's just something you give up to make sure the protection's secure.
All right. Great explanation, Coach Borges. On to the next one. Here's a good one from John Walls. Al, with the run game not working, would you keep having play action so your young QB has his back to a defense that is coming downhill on fire?
Oh yeah, you still play pass. You could. I've seen guys play pass in games where they barely rush the ball, but the reason they barely rushed the ball is because the defense was being so aggressive on a run. You could still throw. Now, at one point in the game, that becomes futile. Okay, so that's not 100% proposition. But don't abandon your play pass game just because it's not working or whatever. Or you're not running the ball well, because you would be amazed at what defenders, because they're so type A and so aggressive with sick mentality. They'll take fakes, even sometimes not very good fakes, and put themselves out of position to make a throw. So you want to always keep that, but you got to use it discriminately. And it's obviously much better if you are running the ball well, because now you can get safeties to bite. And now safeties biting can result in touchdowns.
All right. Next question for Al, or maybe this is more of a comment from DJ Sin City. By year 2, Bryce will be a Heisman candidate. He needs all these reps.
Yes. It's good. It's good. It's good statement. He does. And like I said, some of these reps are ugly. Some of these reps are good. But every rep he takes is a new experience, a new adventure that's going to pay off down the line somewhere. Good, bad, or indifferent. So let it rip. You got to go through some growing pains with a quarterback like this to reap the benefits of what he can bring to the table.
All right, Lance 85. I still haven't seen a quick slant yet. None. Definitely would work on DBs playing 8 yards back with 7 guys on the defensive line.
Yeah, I love the slant. Particularly if you can get an isolation on the backside of a 3-by-1. But even 2-by-2s with complementary routes. I love this slant, and that would be a good answer to get the ball out quick. So look for that, to see more of that, because I think that's probably going to happen at one point in time. And I think he can throw it.
All right. Next question comes from all right. So this gets back to another, probably where you're talking about the running back aborting to pick up a blitz. Said count 4 or 5 times where the quarterback is in the gun and it looks like Bryce or the running back with the wrong way on the fake. Is that by design? It looks like Bryce turned the wrong way. This has to do with.
Yeah, I think we answered that. I don't think he turned the wrong way at all. But who knows? I don't know everything. There might have been one in there, because I've had quarterbacks turn the wrong way. But it looks a little silly at times, and people go, "What are they doing?" Guys faking the air and the back's not even. But there's a reason for it. More often than not, there's a reason that happened.
All right. Michael Dunn says, Al, do you think this loss will set a fire underneath the offensive line?
I think it can be a motivating force, but I think the offensive line plays with some fire, guys, more than you think they do. Okay, I don't think that. I think they just need to play together more. I've said this 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more. This position is about chemistry, working in concert, playing with the same guy next to you constantly. If you look at Michigan's great success years, pretty much the same 5 played all the time. Now, yeah, there was an injury here or there, but it wasn't a shuffling process all the time. It wasn't. Those guys got to know each other. They knew when to make the calls. The right guard knew what the right tackle was doing. The center would set them on the right page. I mean, their best years, they had chemistry. So they need to get to that point more than get all fired up. Now, that's good too. I mean, but there's a lot of things in there, guys, the physicality and the mental game where they just have to work in concert.
Mm-hmm. All right, Al. This is an interesting one. And I wonder about it. Munir says, Al, with Gio out, what do you think next week's O-line will look like?
Probably pretty close to what they finished the game with. That was what I would get.
Here's why I'm a little reluctant. I wonder how long they think Gio will be out. He seemed, talking about Sharon, seemed a little different when he talked about day-to-day with Gio compared to some of the other day-to-days. And, if I thought Gio might be out a little longer, I might, and this is speculation on my part, so I want to qualify it as such. But I might play around with the idea of sliding Link inside. Because I think Link is more of a guard than the tackle anyway. And playing Frazier at left tackle and moving Link inside the guard.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that page, okay, I think that you got to find the 5 best linemen and then fit them in the position. Don't say this guy's a tackle, this tackle's out, so this tackle's in. And that never worked for me. Okay. The 5 best dudes and then fit the position. Okay. Right. If it means Link to guard and moving a right tackle in that's the 5th best player, do it. Mm-hmm. If that's what you got to do. I mean, I don't know. Grant knows all that stuff. But right. It can't be Jones is out, Smith's in. You know what I mean? Because he backs him up. Well, maybe in this game, I don't know. But that can't be a consistent theme. You've got to get the best 5. So the best athletes are on the field, and the same five guys are working together. I never liked subbing out offensive linemen for anything other than injury. Okay. I just didn't. I mean, some guys will do it, but I never liked it because I just didn't think that I thought you lost some of that cohesiveness when there's a player in there that didn't play all the time. The same five guys played all the time. I knew they knew what they were doing, and they knew what they were doing. So that's where I am with that. Find the best five, let them play, and don't worry about what position they play, but don't be hung up on, is he a tackle? Is he a guard? He may not be playing the position he's built to play, but he's still the best, one of the best five.
All right, on to the next one. This one comes from Grand Info question for Al. Do you feel Chip Lindsey is still learning how to best utilize Bryce, what plays he excels at, etc.?
Yeah, and this is we talked about this a year ago. Matter of fact, we talked about this every year, I think, at one time or another. You never know. You think you do, and the fans sure as hell think they do, exactly how they're going to play and what they're going to do until they do it live in a game. Okay? You learn more about your football team in game-specific situations. I hear so many pundits and so many people say, "Oh, I do the guy do that." I do. No, you didn't, because you've never seen him play in a college football game. You know what I mean? You've got to see what they do and how they work in that environment because it's so different. So many errors are game specific that may never show up in practice. Okay, so yeah, I think you just got to get them in there and get a feel for what they're best at. And that usually determines how you're going to plan in the future. And it may not have been what you thought it was going to be based on what you saw in practice or what you watched in high school film. It may not be. It may be exactly. I don't know. But it seldom is. So you learn about your team, particularly as a coordinator. You learn about your team more as you do it. Very few guys with a brand new quarterback hit the ground running knowing exactly what's going to happen on the field. Very few. And so it's a great point. Great question.
All right. Next one for Al, as we keep it going, comes from David Pruden. It seems as if our play calling totally flipped from week 1 to week 2. I'd say keep the passing volume from week 1, mix in some design QB runs, or just give Bryce the green light to run.
Yeah, I think he has a green light to run on improv. I don't think they're keeping him from doing that. Certainly not. Well, you can see a few times he had a couple scramble throws and has had him both weeks. It doesn't matter how much you want to design running. But I think that little list of things, I think that's all good stuff. Yeah, I think that's a good approach. You just have to decide how you want to move the X's and O's. One guy mentioned throw more slants. Maybe that's an answer because the ball's out fast, and the quarterback can certainly make those throws. Maybe we talked about quarterback runs. Maybe that has to be featured a little bit more. You don't know. So again, you're still learning your team a little bit, and you don't really learn about your team until you play somebody like Oklahoma. That'll raise some eyebrows.
What I want you to comment on, because what David is kind of picking up on a conversation that question. It was sort of a question. Is picking up on what this comment cut from a different cloth chimes in on. He says, I was saying the same thing you said when I was watching the game. Chip ain't calling some of these plays. This seems like a collaborative effort with emphasis on what Moore liked. So what they're suggesting is that Chip has either some parameters, some confines being placed on his play calling, or that Sharon is calling some of the plays. And so what I'd like you to comment on, Al, at the very least, is being a play caller for a head coach who is an offensive guy or who himself was a play caller. What kind of challenge that was, or what kind of dynamic that was for you?
Yeah. It's a great question. This is, oh man, this gets to the meat of my job at different places. Okay. Uh, this is interesting. And again, I'm not on the headphone, so I don't know, but I'm betting Chip's calling 99%, if not all the plays. That would be my guess because I think they don't. I know Michigan has worked a certain way, but it wasn't with Jerome where that certain guys would call plays and other guys would call plays. But I don't think that's happening at all. But here's the deal: when you inherit a new situation, okay, I'm gonna give you a quick example. When I went to Auburn, I had been in Indiana. We did not run much inside zone. It wasn't a big play for us. We were a power stretch team. That was what we ran, power stretch. But when I went to Auburn, they majored in inside zone. That was their deal. Okay. And I knew that's what they knew, that's what they understood, and that's what they wanted. I'd run the inside zone. This wasn't news to me. But I came off a place where we just didn't do it as much. So it didn't roll off my tongue in play calling. But I knew if we're going to be successful, I better be calling that play a certain amount of times or we're going to struggle. So my thinking shifted. I wanted to accommodate a situation for the players that would help them continue to succeed. And that took a shift in thinking. Okay. That took a shift in thinking. It wasn't a bastard for me, but it was different. And I think what you're getting is Chip wants to maintain that Michigan culture. And why wouldn't you? It's been a successful culture. Okay. It's what they want to do. And now they have a dynamic player under center who I think is going to be a great player. And you can use some of these same concepts with a quarterback that can create. So he's trying to accommodate that, which I think is a smart thing to do. Plus, incorporate a few things that he brought. Okay. In this game, I believe there were 8 stretch plays. 8 stretch plays. I don't know, 8 stretch plays in 8 games, right? Before. So there's still some of that personality, his personality, but you still want to do what they've done and been successful with, and the players can run and can play fast doing and still be able to do some of the things you'd like to do. So I just know how that can be. And in this game, the ball didn't move very good. So nothing looked very good. But again, in time, I think this will all mesh out pretty good.
All right. Great stuff, Al. That's great stuff.
Oh, okay.
That's great stuff. And you were there. So how about this one for comparison? Take us back to what it was like when Chip was at Auburn.
Yeah.
And he was
perfect. Perfect. That's a perfect example. Okay. Chip was accommodating Gus Malzahn. Okay. Because Gus had an offense. Now, Gus was very involved in the offense. Okay. He wasn't like he was in the meetings. He was running. So you were more micromanaged. You know what I mean? He was calling the plays, Chip, which Gus wasn't calling them. But it was Gus's stuff with a little bit of Chip mixed in because Chip wanted to add something to their passing game. Okay. So that's a prime example. But you know what, Sam? No 2 guys call the game the same exact way. Now, you watched the Lions play Sunday, right? Okay. They have a new coordinator. Okay. Did it look like he called the game exactly the same way the other guy called it? I don't know. I didn't. I was in and out.
So I mean, it was hard to. Their offensive line play was atrocious. So it was really hard to get a game. I mean, it looked
bingo. I'm so glad you said that. That tells you exactly. That's all you said. The line was so bad. Well, I don't think the line put like atrocious, but it was not as good as it liked to be.
Right.
And you never see the schemes that you like so much work with any consistency. So there's a rhythmic play calling sequence. You know what I mean? You got that. That's my point. Is that you got to still block them, guys. You can complain about play calling. God knows I've heard it for 43 years of coaching. But if you can't block them, there ain't no good calls. Just didn't.
All right. Kellen Sandifer, he said, what needs to be worked on first, run blocking or pass blocking?
Yes.
That's why I'm laughing at the question. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. All right. We got both. Man. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. You don't panic and you don't go, oh, God, ooh, and what am I going to do? It's the impact of losing a game like that is so painful. I mean, it is. I just us. I hate going in Sundays after a game like that. I hate going on Sundays anytime you lose. But I think that the biggest thing now is stay the course and do what you're doing and correct errors and move on. You got a lot more games, and you're going to be better in game 8 than you were in game 2. I mean, you just give it a chance. Don't go bananas right now. I mean, the fans get to do that, the coaches don't.
All right. Next one is this is a good one. Go Blue Brian 19. How does this offensive line improve before Big Ten play, which is basically Central Michigan, this next game?
Yeah, keeping the same guys playing together and working in concert, and doing what they're doing, but make sure the best 5 are out there all the time. And I'm sure they're doing that. I don't preach that, but that's what you need. Keep them playing, and it'll get better. It'll get better.
Mm-hmm. Steve Horn with an interesting question. Al, would you like to have seen some more max protection and 3-man routes to help Bryce?
Here and there. Yeah, here and there. Yeah, I think that's good too. You can't hold them all in all the time, but you need to once in a while, just so he can see some throws and you can work some single coverage routes. And then another time, send 5 guys out. But again, Chip's been exposed to all this. He's done it all. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Yeah, I think there is a place for that. But you try and win a game holding everybody in max, you're going to get people covered. You're not going to have any checkdowns. You're going to, the quarterback's going to get killed. The reason you did it is the reason you'll get beat. Is he won't have anybody to throw to, or he'll get sacked or end up throwing the ball away. But on occasion, there ain't nothing wrong with that. It's okay. Let's turn the line, leave 2 backs in, and send the guys on 2 go routes. Okay, let's turn the line, leave 2 backs in, and run 2 comebacks. That's good stuff, But if you keep doing that, you get covered because the numbers, 7 people covering with 2 or 3 receivers going out, advantage defense. Okay, protection's all great, but it's not productive if it's done too much.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting question to ponder, Al, from Grand Info. Knowing you have lost your best receiver, blocking tight end, I think he's meant / blocking tight end. Talking about Maryland Klein prior to the game, would you still run 12 personnel with freshman and sophomore tight ends? And you got to build into the equation Hogan Hansen, who played in this game but wasn't 100%. Would you still run as much 12 personnel as they ran in this contest?
Yeah, we alluded to this a little bit earlier, didn't we? Is what faith do you have in the tight ends that are playing? Okay, if you believe that the guys that are playing can get the job done, then you can go business as usual. If you have your doubts about that, or you feel as though your 3rd wide receiver might be better than your 2nd tight end or whatever, then go into some more spread looks. There's nothing wrong with that either. Is saying, okay, it may change, it may shift a little bit your schematic, but it may accommodate your personnel better. The best thing is have the ability to do some of both without changing your offense. You know what I mean? But I think that's a very, very good question. But it's all based on how you feel those kids can hold up. And I'm talking about the tight ends.
Mm-hmm. Michigan Real Talk says last week you gave Bryce a B, this week a D+. What were you specifically looking at as the difference in his performance?
I think footwork issues, footwork resulting in some accuracy issues, short drops. Last week he was so much more comfortable, for good reason. And he got his feet in the ground. He still had some errors last week. He wasn't perfect, but I liked him. I still like him. He had to grow from a game like this. But he wasn't as productive. And when he isn't as productive, I'm not going to say he got an A or a B when he didn't. But you learn from those situations. But I think most of his issues, and I'm a footwork fanatic because I think it influences your progressions, your reads, your vision, everything. And sometimes he did some short drops. He didn't time throws out very well. But I think a lot of it was because of the protection.
So this is a great question from Russian Flow. What passing concepts would you use for a young QB that are easier to read outside of Dagger?
Oh, there's numerous. I don't know where to start. I used to when I introduced my passing game to the quarterback, I always did it in concepts. Okay, for example, a Dagger, would be basically a vertical horizontal stretch concept. One guy's taking a guy down the middle, one guy's going a delta concept, curl flat type thing where two guys are going in the flat, or one guy's spotting up over the ball. That's a simple concept. But the thing I think that you have to go further with is to say, how much of the whole field is he going to read? How many full field reads are you going to use? And if you feel he's comfortable with full field reads or a couple full field reads, then keep him. Otherwise, half field reads, pocket movement, stuff like that, simple as could be. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter what the coverage is. Find your throwing lanes, make your throw, or take your check down. Is a lot simpler. And like I said last week, the more he plays, then he can start really maneuvering the schematics. Okay, you get all kinds of stuff you can do. 2x2s, picking your side pre-snap read, deciding based on the coverage where you want to throw it. 3x1s, premium looks backside. You're going to use a premium looker. You're just going to have them keep it simple and read half the field. I mean, you can be as complex as you want to be, but right now I would lean the more conservative direction until he gets his feet on the ground.
Tyler W says multiple schemes are great as long as you can execute your base plays. How did they do on duos?
They ran 8 duos. They had some issues occasionally on movement at the edge. Again, tight end, the new tight ends. A couple of them weren't bad. Couple of them weren't bad at all. I don't have play for play in front of me what each one yielded, but it wasn't a terrible play, but it just wasn't a consistent play like it's been.
All right. DJ Sin City, I think Michigan is going to be just fine. Once Chip gets his scheme fully installed, it will be fine. This is an adjustment.
Yep, that's exactly what I said. Is you're learning about your team. And
thanks, Al. We will improve. I believe. Go Blue.
That a baby, Michael. Just hang in there, buddy. Hang in there. Rome was not built in a day.
All right. We being Co. Appreciate the super chat. The jumbo package sprung the 75-yard TD. Any idea why we didn't see more jumbo packages in the game? P.S. Matt Patricia is still a bum.
No, he isn't. No, he's not. He's a genius this week. What was the score this week? What was the score this week?
Absolutely a
bum. They beat Grambling State 150 to nothing. Something like that. Genius, Sam. Genius.
Al. Sam. Now, I mean this with all due respect. Because Susan knows a lot of damn football, but Susan could coach. Someone to beat Grambling State. No disrespect. She could coach Ohio State to a 60-something victory over Grambling State. I'm just saying. That's how talented Ohio State is. Okay? So Matt Patricia is no genius. That is my point. Now, back to the question at hand. The jumbo package.
Yeah.
Counter F. Great vision. Cut it back.
Yeah.
But why not anymore?
It's another answer. You're right. I can't say you're wrong. They have it. They did it. They do it. And I think, again, learning the offense. This is something that is really kind of exclusive to Michigan. And I'm sure other teams do a little bit of extra alignment and all that, but not like Michigan. Okay. So you still learn offense, and it's another tool, and it's a neat tool. Because remember, Sam, we used to we'd crunch the numbers on what jumbo was doing, and they were always good, man. There were very few tackles for loss, and there's a lot of nice gains, a lot of big gains, and a lot of good gains. The 4 and 5s you could do. So it's another answer to helping you run the football, and particularly if you don't have your tight ends.
Hey, we being close. All we want to do is be undefeated at the Wallacruda against Joe Schmatz.
Yeah,
and can't lose. He's still alive.
At all. I don't like that guy, Sam. Don't like him at all. Joe Schmatz. Yeah, we know so much more than Joe Schmatz. Joe Schmatz just thinks he knows. Smots played nose guard at Jones Junior High. He don't know nothing. And we're educating you on a week-to-week basis. So don't let anybody tell you at the water cooler, even Joe Schmatz or otherwise, what football's about. So you got it down.
Here's an interesting one from Grant Info. You guys come with great questions. You know that I got to compliment our crowd. You're level-headed.
Educated fan.
Educated.
I told Chip that too. I go, this is an educated fan base now. They're not, this is a little different than the places you coach because he's coached some of the same places I have. These people have been educated. They're fanatic but analytical. You know.
Absolutely. So, question, Al, how would you compare Bryce's first 2 games compared to Denard Robinson's first 2 games? And question 2, well, he already gave your grade for Bryce, but how would you compare the first 2 games for Bryce to Denard's first 2 games with you?
With me, yeah, because Denard wasn't a freshman when I had him. I had Denard's first couple games. First game, I think we played Western, and the game got stopped in the third quarter. You know, we were average, to be honest with you. And we were average against Notre Dame for 3 quarters, but we exploded late. So, we were doing a lot of stuff with him that we didn't do as much later in the season. We were using him some under center to take the brunt off running the ball and getting the crap beat out of him. But we found more and more as we went, it was an adjustment for us as coaches to where we had to feature him more as a runner and still keep Fitz Tucson alive. You know what I mean? So he was fine. I mean, he played good. He still made plays that you would never think that you don't draw on paper, but it's different. It's different than Bryce, a different quarterback. Denard was a runner passer without question. Maybe I'd even say a runner passer, where this kid's a passer runner. Okay. And with a passer runner, learning the passing game the way they want to do is going to come probably a little slower, I would guess. So, again, I think in time, because I don't know the kid, but all the coaches tell me he's really a studious football player and really wants to learn and is not above anything. He doesn't hear all the noise. So I think in a reasonable amount of time, you're going to have a hell of a product.
All right. This is an interesting one from John Walls. He said, we moved the pocket more against New Mexico than we did Oklahoma. Can you explain that, Al?
We did a little bit more, maybe not as much as you think. Okay, we used it. I think we had 3 sprint passes, and we nakeded, I think, 3 times. So it was a few more times. But again, we're working with more good down and distances, and we get first down, scoring touchdowns. It's a lot easier to go call plays and use more concepts when rather than struggling and not getting to a lot of stuff that was still on your call sheet. That's probably the best way to explain it is when you're not playing as well, you leave a lot of stuff on that sheet. You say, oh, God, our plan was to go out there and run 7 counter plays, and I ran 3. Well, why? Because we punted too many times on third down. Whereas if we'd have got a first down, I'd have had 3 more shots to call another counter play. I'm just using counter as an example. It could be anything, So the worse you play, the more you leave on the sheets. If they'd run 10 more plays, you probably would have seen 2 more sprint passes, maybe 1 more naked, and the pocket would have moved more. So,
All right, Clifton Creed. What's the stat line you want to see for this Saturday's game versus Central Michigan that would make you feel better going into that matchup with Nebraska over in Lincoln?
I think just, first of all, your goal is to get 30-plus points, right? Team like this, people expect 40-plus points. Well, maybe that'd be good too, but get 30-plus points, rush the ball for 150 to 180 yards. If you get 200, all the better, and pass the ball for 200 yards, and that would be a pretty good game as long as you don't turn the ball over, because the only chance you got of losing a game like this to me or making a game close is if you give them some short-range opportunities that got you swallowing hard at the end of the game. I've had that happen too. But if they just take care of that football and get around those numbers. I mean, I'm not a big stat guy like a lot of guys. Okay, you got to have this many yards to rush. You got to have this many yards, but you do have a basic outline goal of what you think can win the game, because the stats are irrelevant if you don't win the game.
All right. Next one, DJ Sin City back. Are we holding on to an identity that we don't have the bodies to run to live up to, Al?
It's a good question.
It is.
It's a damn good question.
Mhm.
I don't know if that can be answered right now. I don't know if that can be answered right now because if you abandon it, realize what you're abandoning. Okay, realize what you're abandoning. This is a team that's familiar with how to run this offense, and now you're going to say we're going to go to a completely different deal because we just don't feel we have the guys. Hell, that might be the thing to do, and it might not. So I would give this more of a chance because of the history
Yeah.
and say, hey, I'll work around it if it doesn't work out. But I'm certainly not going to go with 4 wide receivers this week because all of a sudden we're not running the dual play as well.
Yeah,
Not
that
yet.
that fits with Adam Shepherdson's question where he says, Coach, there have been rumblings of Michigan having an identity crisis. Is that something that can be remedied sooner rather than later? And you're saying no.
No, it's way too early to say that. Anytime you're not moving the ball, that comes up. I mean, if any team anywhere, you're not moving the ball, they don't have an identity crisis. Well, hell, no, you don't have an identity crisis because you don't have enough plays to be identified. You know what I mean? You're not running enough good plays to say, oh, well, but they're trying the best they can to maintain the identity that they've had for a long, long time. And they'd like to keep that identity. They don't want to abandon it. They just want to expand on it a little bit to accommodate the personnel and score more points. But I don't think you can right now say, oh, now maybe after 5 games, you say, they can't run a dual play, not with any consistency. Or they can't run this or whatever. You might be able to draw more brash conclusions, but right now, way too early for that.
All right. Henry McElpine from Facebook says, hey, Al, what about more of the tailback catching the ball out of the backfield?
I vote yes. I vote yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Check down screens, things like that. I think it's great. Design free releases. Again, something I don't have a great feel for that I always have in the past with these guys because we had Donovan, we had Corum, we had guys I'd seen enough catch the ball. I'm not sure what the skill set of our two back, Marshall and Hayes, is regarding that. Okay. Generally, those halfbacks can catch a ball. Now, some of them are going to really catch it, and some guys are solid receivers. But either way you cut it, I think that's always a great thing to add to your offense. Is build him into, if he's really good, you can use an option out runner, but rail routes, swing routes, wheel routes, those types of things, if in fact you think that's something that they're capable of doing.
All right. Couple more for Al before we get out of here. Moist Sauce 3. You talked about working on O-line communication. Any drills you would run if you were the O-line coach to improve that area?
Well, that's just a daily deal. That's a given. That's incorporated just from day one. You know what I mean? You constantly work on it and make sure that your center is vocal because a lot of times he's the dude that puts everybody on the right page. So.
All right. I think that is about
Good, because my
it.
battery's running out, Sam. We got to.
Yeah, I think we exhausted all of the questions that aren't repeats. I'll make this the last one because it's kind of funny. P. Maximus says, we caught more screens than FPS 100 sunscreen protection. Al, I heard of being safe. But please, Al, explain. They were blowing up those bubble screens, Al.
Yeah, though you're talking more about bubbles, but
Yeah,
bubbles are forms of screen, so
yeah.
I would categorize it. Man, I tell you what, they did. They played those. Uh, their own team probably does it quite a bit, and they're pretty good at playing. They force your receivers to block them, and they're gonna anytime they even saw any indication it could be, they jumped it. I mean, jumped it. And a couple of times there was a little miscommunication on who had who. One time it got blown up big time. But it's again, if you throw that pass and it works, everybody thinks it's great. You throw that pass and it doesn't, they want to know why you keep throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. So, and this is one of those games where they want to know why you keep throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. So, got to keep it, got to do it, use it, don't abuse it. It's good stuff. But sometimes people, they play defense and they coach too.
Denard said he kept looking for him to pump it, and
Yeah, they did last week. Remember, Sam? They did the one that I think was Marsh that he
and he
didn't
didn't
look
look
for the
for it.
ball. That was a wheel off a bubble. They got it in their playbook. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. Well, Al, look, you said 30 plus points in this game. Get a good taste in your mouth up front with a group of five that cuts down on the communication breakdowns. Be a good start for this week.
Yeah,
What'd
I
you
think
say?
that'd be good. And by communication breakdown, I'm not always talking about calls. That's part of it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm just talking about knowing when to push through on double teams. I mean, physically communicating too. When to
Hmm.
push through on double teams, when one guy gets engaged on, two guys get engaged on one, and another guy's free. But saying, okay, I got to fall off and kick. That's all. That's all body communication. So it goes beyond just verbal. So
I gotcha. Well, Coach Borges, great stuff as always, man. Yeah, this game is important, as someone alluded to. It's important that this is clean and crisp. That they show some good football in this contest before going on the road to Lincoln, because while you may not see the ranking next to Nebraska as high as the one next to Oklahoma, the environment is going to be very much the same.
very similar. Very similar. I think those two used to play one of the biggest games in the country for years, didn't they?
Yes, they
The
did.
environment was second to none back when that happened.
Yes, they
So
did. So great stuff as always, Coach Borges, folks. We appreciate you watching this breakdown. Be sure to tune in a little less than a half hour, about 20 minutes, as a matter of fact, for the defensive breakdown with Vance Bedford. But that'll do it for us here with Gorgeous Borges. He'll be back next week around the same time. So we'll see you
love it,
then.
Sam. Absolutely love it.
Thanks for watching the Michigan Football Breakdown focused on the offense with Al Borges. We'll see
Go
you next
blue.
week.